Welcome to the Champs App podcast. Champs App is your recruiting and development co-pilot. If you are a player, parent, or coach, make sure to check out more content and tools to help navigate the world of youth hockey at champs.app. Also, if you've listened to the Champs App podcast in the past and it has helped you with your recruiting or hockey development, please tell your teammates and friends about Champs App. It would be even better if you subscribe to the podcast and review or rate us on whichever platform you're listening to or watching us on. On today's episode, we talk with Brian Idalski, the new head coach of the Syracuse women's hockey team. Brian was last on the show back in episode 85 when he was in his second year at St. Cloud State. And a lot has happened since then. We discussed his season as the inaugural head coach of the PWHL Goldeneyes, being named head coach of the Czechia women's national team, and his vision for turning Syracuse around. Brian also goes into detail on the NCAA 5-for-5 rule change and what it means for families going through recruiting right now. This is a really honest conversation with Brian, so please enjoy. Recruiting season is underway, and the families who are ready will have a serious edge. Champs 360 is built to get you prepared. We've added powerful recruiting tools to help you stay organized, get informed, and make smarter decisions. College Search lets you filter and find the right school. My Shortlist lets you save and track those teams as your recruiting journey develops. And for every school on your shortlist, the team dashboard gives you a deep look at school-specific content, rosters, coaching staff, messages, recruiting data, events, and more, all in one place. We've also made it easier for families to work together. Players can share access with their parents so everyone stays on the same page throughout the process. And every player gets a free professional recruiting at Champs Mail email ad. Put it on your event registrations, recruiting forms, anywhere coaches will see it. When coaches reply, those emails forward straight to your personal inbox or your parent. No extra accounts to manage, with more privacy and control. With Champs 360, you can send or schedule messages to coaches directly through your Champs Mail address and track when your messages get opened and how often, giving you real signal on which schools are paying attention. Don't wait. The recruiting calendar doesn't slow down. Visit champs.app or download the app to get started. I'm excited to welcome back to the podcast Syracuse women's hockey head coach, Brian Idalski. Last time he was on the show, back in episode 85, he was in his second year as the head coach with the St. Cloud State University women's program. After 3 years at SCSU, Brian became the inaugural coach of the PWHL Vancouver franchise. This spring, he was named head coach of the Czechia women's national team, and just recently, Brian returned to women's college hockey, being named the new head coach of the Syracuse women's hockey team. Welcome back, Brian.
Thanks. I appreciate you having me.
Great to see you. Hey, we're going to change things up a little bit and start with what's going on with the NCAA 5-for-5 rule change. Can you tell folks what's going on and the implications for women's hockey?
So the NCAA granted a fifth year to the junior, sophomore, and rising first year class, and then everyone underneath moving forward. Now, the thing that's going to be a little bit tricky is there's currently a lawsuit from a group of seniors also petitioning to get that fifth year. And if that goes through, which we're hoping will one way or the other work itself out here in the next couple months, that's going to be a huge impact to the 27 class, the 28 class, on how players start matriculating, because most programs have not planned for those seniors. And now you're going to have to make some decisions who you're bringing back out of that senior class. If you are bringing them back, what do you do with your committed 27s? Do you push them to 28, or do you bring them in, all along with the new legislation for a roster size of 26 and scholarships moving up past 18. So stepping back in, Ray, there's a lot going on with the NCAA. So it's been an interesting transition back.
That's quite the welcome back, right? Like, as one coach told me, the ground keeps moving under your feet as you're trying to do all this recruiting, and it doesn't make it easier, it just makes it more complicated.
No, and even here, a lot of people are, what does your list look like? Where are you going? What are your thoughts? And really, you just have to push people off because you don't know. You don't have all the information. And if you just haphazardly start committing to players and throwing resources at people and everything changes, well, that's not a great look. So patience has been the rule of the day. And I know as a recruiter, having been on that other side of things a long time ago, that can be nerve-wracking and be stressful.
100%. Okay, well, we'll see how it all pans out. But in the meantime, get us caught up. So when we last spoke, you were in the middle of your second year and you were able to quickly turn around St. Cloud State and make them one of the top teams in the very tough WCHA conference. So remind everyone of the keys to your success. Like if I remember correctly, you gave them the players came to you and they said, "Hey, we want more structure, we want more expectations," right? And so in my mind, like there's no better example of the impact the coach can have on a team before and after you got there. Like what was that philosophy? If you could just quickly summarize, and then we can talk about what happened after you left.
Sure. So to me, there's no secret sauce. Everyone talks about that. And what is it? Normally, when you step into a situation, they talk about communication. They talk about clear standards being communicated. They talk about accountability. And so that's been consistent with every program I've taken over. And so it's really just fixing those things, trying to communicate really well, having clear expectations for every individual, what their role is, what they can do to best help the team, and then holding people accountable. So I really think a lot of that stuff is unconscious knowledge, but that's where culture takes over, where the players are reinforcing that, they're living that out every day in practice with work ethic, compete, and a willingness to do the little things that take to win hockey games. So to me, there's really not much to that.
But what was really interesting to me is like literally right after you left, team went back to the way it was before. And I've gotten enough inside information because you recruited players obviously during your 3 years, and you had a bunch of players who were playing for the team last year. Well, like 9 players from SCSU were in the transfer portal, and from what I understand, the significant majority of those were folks that the coaching staff asked not to return for next season. So, like to me, that says a lot about the impact that you had and the durability of your system. Any thoughts on that? I know obviously you're not at SCSU anymore, but any thoughts on like coaching changes and how that impacts players?
And in all transparency and honesty, like I wanted Mir to have that job and knew that transitions aren't easy and that there would be some changes. She would bring some of her own style. She would bring some of the things that she saw firsthand working for Ken Klee in the Minnesota Frost and winning back-to-back championships. And so I knew that there would be some slight changes. And in all fairness, the reality is things had changed as well. Per the NCAA, St. Cloud State opted in to 26 and unlimited scholarships. Well, we had been built prior on carrying a larger roster, developing players, redshirting players. So a lot of what transpired had to do with that, in fairness to that program and their coaching staff. Not to mention we needed to carry a larger roster because we were going to lose 5 or 6 players for an Olympic year. And you can't be playing games with 12 and 14 players for a month while your players are at the Olympics. So it was a perfect storm with transition, Olympic year, NCAA rules. There was a lot going on, but I still obviously maintain a lot of relationships with the staff, with the players there, and I really do root for them to be successful. And I think they're going to take another big step forward this year and really want to see them successful. So I'm still a big fan and with nothing but the best for Mir and the rest of the players there.
Gotcha. I'm going to leave my comments out, given that I have a player who plays in the same league, so I'm hoping they don't do as well as my daughter's team. But we'll keep going. So
That's fair. We just want good competitive games then.
100%. That's why the WCHA is so competitive because the best players play in that conference. So, why did you decide to leave St. Cloud State to pursue the professional opportunity with the Goldeneyes?
I think, like a lot of people, when you're competitive, you want to continue to move up and you want to see what you can do at the highest levels possible. And so, obviously, the opportunity with the PWHL came up, and it was something that I looked at and chose to do. And I was very excited to go through that process and have that opportunity.
Okay, so for folks who don't know, the two new franchises finished at the bottom of the standings. Obviously, a challenge. Obviously, they were also on the West Coast, so in the Pacific time zone, so a lot of travel. So, what happened with Vancouver? Was it related to the players? Was it the organization? Was it the coaching? How come it didn't have an even better first year than like the Vegas Golden Knights did in their inaugural season?
Well, again, understanding the Vegas Knights, yep, very aggressive, did a great job. They changed all the rules after Vegas because they totally broke that system. Like no one's been able to replicate that out of the chute. But that is like everyone's example of what that process might look like as an expansion team. you don't know what you don't know. And as much as you feel like you're prepared and you have an understanding and you're going to figure it out as you go and be able to adjust, that expansion year was a challenge. It was a challenge for everyone, the players, it was a challenge for the staff, management. And so there are a lot of things that we were playing catch up on. That's a tough way to play when you're playing 30 some games and it takes you a month and a half to figure some things out. And then you're dealing with the Olympic breaks. No excuses. Didn't perform as I would have expected or I wanted. And I think the players and everyone involved would have said the same thing. So I am excited for them for year two. I think a lot of lessons learned and they're in a better position to move forward and to be successful. So it'll be interesting to watch from afar and I wish them nothing but the best.
Gotcha. So just a couple quick more questions. So I've had multiple conversations with Greg Fargo over this summer. Champs App helped him out at his basically his camp
And
he had in
we did
Rochester.
finish above him in New York. So we weren't both the last. We finished ahead of New York and we were right on the heels of Toronto's. We made a pretty good push at the end.
Perfect. All right. So Greg has mentioned that the impact, you mentioned the Olympics. He also mentioned travel. Like, were those like big factors in the performance of the team? Especially you every time, basically, unless you're playing Seattle, you're changing time zones.
That's a part of it. And I knew that would be a part of it. I had experienced that when we're playing overseas and we were in China and having to fly up 10 hours to Russia. Russia, most people are unaware of how large Russia is and how many time zones they have. So we had dealt with some of that. And so I knew it was coming. But again, the player pool hasn't really experienced that on a regular basis. And there was a learning curve there with how we're taking care of ourselves. What does that look like? And I think there's still a lot more to be learned and a lot more that we could do to manage some of the travel. And the reality is, it's not easy being on the road for 15 days plus, and that turned into a regular occurrence for us. So again, I never made any excuses about that. You got to play the games. There was definitely something to that. And I think, again, something that'll be learned, and there's different things that we can do to manage that, manage their load and their bodies to make sure they're a little fresher and that they're playing at a little higher level with the travel. It'll be interesting to see what the league does. Because now with the expansion teams, do they switch to 2 conferences and play more loaded? That'll ease some of the travel, or they can continue to have it balanced where everyone's playing everyone 2-3 times at minimum. We'll see.
Well, for sure. Having more West Coast teams will definitely help. Hopefully by now you've heard of Champs IQ, our hockey video analysis service designed to give players and families honest, objective feedback on where a player's game truly is today. I wanted to take a moment to explain how it works and, more importantly, why it's been so impactful, because honestly, we've been blown away by how consistently positive the feedback has been from parents and players after they receive their reports. Several families have already used Champs IQ multiple times this season. One parent summed it up perfectly. The analysis report itself was impressive, far exceeding my expectations or the perceived value from the website. It provides an honest and detailed assessment of the player, which is incredibly useful for identifying strengths and weaknesses. Champs IQ is built for both boys and girls, skaters, and goalies. Players submit at least 10 minutes of edited game footage, and our expert analysts deliver a data-driven evaluation across more than 15 key attributes. Every report includes an overall rating, a projection of NCAA Division I potential, and most importantly, clear, actionable development priorities so players know exactly what to work on next. We hear this from a lot of parents. I thought I knew where my player was at, but this helped me truly understand where they need to improve. That clarity is what makes Champs IQ different. Now, we know video editing can feel intimidating at first. You can absolutely edit the video yourself, and we have step-by-step guides on Champs app to help. And if you use services like LiveBarn or the Prospect Exchange, those tools can make preparing your submission fast and easy. The submission guidelines may look detailed, but once you see an example, it's very straightforward. If you want to try Champs IQ, you can use coupon code ChampsIQ10. That's EYEQ10 for 10% off your submission. Just head to champsiq.com or visit Champs app and submit your player's video today. One last question on the PWHL. Do you think that your team may have been a little bit better if you had Caroline Harvey on your team last year?
Well, she's a generational player, and she's been one of the best players in the world for a few years now. So that'll definitely make an impact. I think the thing about Carolyn that makes her so special is not only is she individually talented, but like she makes people around her better. The way she moves the pucks, the way she sees the ice, the way that she plays definitely would have helped us last year coming out of the zone a lot cleaner on a regular basis. That was something we struggled with early with our exits. An elite player, and I'm sure she's going to have an immediate impact for them.
Got it. Got it. Okay, we need to keep moving. So congratulations on being named head coach of the Czechia women's national team. We've got some big shoes to fill with Carla McLeod. I'm just curious, how did you get the job? And I know Peter Erlander actually has been deeply involved with them too, because I always see him at international events talking to all the Czechia players. So I'm just curious, did he help you get the job, or like how did it all come together?
Actually, I had interviewed for a position with the Czech national team after the Beijing Olympics. And so I was super familiar with the program, just having competed against them. And so I built a couple relationships through that process. And so when they were looking, we had connected and started the talk, and the process went from there. So I haven't spoken to Peter in a couple months. Life's been so crazy. Not surprising that he knows everyone. He's been doing this a long time at a super high level, and he's had a fair amount of, even in the last couple of years, Czech players who have been playing for him in the Swedish league. So Peter is an institution in women's hockey, and I believe one day should be in AIHF Hall of Fame for all he's done for the game and the sport. He's a bit of a legend.
You talk to him, and he's forgotten more than any of us will ever know about hockey. So that's
100%.
so. Now this is going to be your hardest question. Have you heard the Czechia goal song? Because it is the best goal song in international hockey.
So that's interesting because I was at Worlds when it was in Czechia, but I don't recall remembering specifically what the goal song was. So
it's like an Papa song. So like can't forget it once you listen to it. It's very good. So anyhow, I understand you're heading to Switzerland very soon for the August tournament. But when you get back, obviously you're going to be focused on Syracuse. So it's about how you got the job and why you decided to go to Syracuse.
that was something early in the process when the position became open that I'd reached out and had some conversations. And it was a place I felt like I could have a pretty large impact. And so conversations and that process probably took a little longer than any of us would have liked, but I was happy to get back into the college game, the relationships, the impact that you can have on individuals development wise. And it was pretty special. I honestly missed some of that. You're managing people at the pro level with everything else that was going on. Relationships were a little harder to build, and quite honestly felt like didn't do a super great job of that, but also have skills coaches, assistant coaches, strength coaches. Like the resources are super as they should be at the pro level, but now I'm managing those relationships instead of having a lot of direct relationship with the players and day-to-day communication and just grabbing a cup of coffee or going out for skills or individually watching film. So it was a different animal. So I was excited to get back into college because a lot of those things are what I enjoy. And so those will be a lot of things, again, that we'll be able to do here at Syracuse with individual skates and skill skates and individual video and just spending time in and around helping them be better people, athletes, and achieving some of their goals, whether that's hockey or not.
So I'm not going to spend too much time talking about Syracuse, the university. I had Brittany Smith, predecessor, on episode 64 of the podcast. And so folks want to dive deep into the actual school, but maybe just talk to folks about the program. They don't have a men's program. You play at a great rink at Kennedy Ice Pavilion. And even prior to Brittany, you had a legendary coach, Paul Flanagan. So maybe just talk to folks about the history of the team and how you're going to put your impact on it.
So, and sometimes when I start dating myself, it makes my head shake. But I remember when Paul Flanagan was hired and the job that Paul did, and a huge fan. We played numerous times against Syracuse with North Dakota. And so built that relationship with him, had a lot of respect for him and what he was doing. And so seeing the growth in what they were building as a program and being in the NCAA tournament. And so just trying to get back to some of the roots of grit, compete, some of the things that I'm pretty passionate about as far as what it takes takes to win hockey games. So that's really where we're at. Had conversations with players, what they liked, what they didn't like, what they would change. And it's been an interesting process. So I'm excited to get on the ice and see what we have and really just guide them on what it looks like to be an elite team and potentially a top 10 team and really reestablish some of the goals of playing an NCAA tournament, beating Penn State, winning our conference and playing in the highest levels of college hockey. So it should be fun for me.
So maybe just talk about moving from the WCHA to the AHA. You have, let's be candid, you're going to have much easier competition except for Penn State, just in general, on average. The other teams that you're going to play against, I think Penn State is the only team from conference that has made a Frozen Four, and that was just last year. So maybe just talk about like the difference of competing at a different level and then how to raise the bar to get to that national ranking level.
So that's definitely one thing. Iron sharpens iron. There's a reason why the WCHA was successful. It's because their teams week in, week out are successful. I don't think they get into an NCAA tournament and like, oh my goodness, we need to ratchet it up. Like this game's so fast. They've already played like that for months. And so that's going to be one of the harder transition things for me to sell and talk to about them. Because when you are having success and you are winning hockey games, you don't know what the higher level is or what the expectation looks like. So someone had told me a story a little bit, even back when Paul started the program, about playing tough games in the beginning of the year and playing non-conference against their top teams. And the players didn't understand why, or why didn't we play some easier games out of the start of the season? And then they made the NCAA tournament, played Quinnipiac, and then it was like, oh, that's why. This is what it looks like. And those games help prepare us for this moment. We actually need more of this. So that's going to be a conversation with the schedule moving forward and what does that look like and the standard. And so it's like players moving through the funnel. You think you're working hard till you go up to the next level. And then you're like, oh, I have more to give. There is another level. And so look at Syracuse in that same light. There's a difference between a high school kid coming to college. There's a difference from a college kid going to the national team, the Olympics. There's a difference between national teams and the PWHL. Everyone along the way thinks they're working hard until you actually see the next level. And then you start to get the light bulb of, oh, I have more to give. Out of the chute, it's going to be me telling them, educating them, trying to prepare them and tell them there's an art level. The reality is, I think we have 4 games against Penn State, a couple against Clarkson, a couple against Colgate, and those are projected to be top 10 teams. So that's going to be some of our measuring stick. That's going to have to be the ones that we point to and say, hey, this is what it looks like. So that was easy for me at St. Cloud. St. Cloud, we start off with Ohio State, and they just about tried to run us out of the barn with physicality and compete. And I was like, that's it. I love the way they play. Like that is what it looks like. And if you can't match that, we're never going to be competitive.
100%. They have a style of play that just smothers you. You get the puck, there's someone on you within a fraction of a second.
Super aggressive all over the ice. And a lot of that's conditioning. A lot of that's legs. They can go, and that doesn't cost anything. Anybody can do that because they didn't always have a lot of talent. But she built that on solid B kids with A work ethics and A conditioning. And so that'll be a similar blueprint because we were actually doing that same thing at North Dakota in the old days. It was a little different because you had to build it over the course of recruiting class. The transfer portal wasn't a thing, but I like what she's done there. And I know she's not everyone's cup of tea, but it's hard to argue with some of the results. It doesn't matter if you're a national team player, you're an Olympian, or you're a walk-on, like you're going to work.
Coach Musserall made it clear. She's there to win. If you don't want to win, don't come to Ohio State. Very simple.
For sure.
So actually, you mentioned the schedule. I noticed that you actually don't have any preseason games and you start in the first week in October with Mercyhurst. I know you joined in the middle of July. Is there any opportunity for you to squeeze in a pre-conference game?
So some of that's just things not being finalized in the transition, to be honest with you. So we open up with an exhibition on the 18th at home against Queens. That's the first official start date. The following weekend, we have non-conference with Stonehill before we get into Mercyhurst. So we really haven't published a lot of the non-conference portions of the schedule. It's really just been the Atlantic Hockey League schedule that's been online. So that's coming. Appreciate you being super attentive.
Well, I know you played Stonehill downhill last year in the preseason. So, and then my wife will be happy because she's a Queens grad. So,
Oh,
she lived in Kingston for 4 years. So let's keep moving in terms of where you are with the assistant coaches. So once again, having paid attention to your website, right now you're the only official coach on the website. Is there any update or news on when you'll be adding additional spots on your coaching staff?
Monday paperwork's finalized, and I'm sure we'll do an announcement for one of the positions, and the other one isn't far behind. Should be through the process on the 20th. So it's never finished completely till it's finished. And so I'll hold that till they go through the announcement, and then it's done when it's done. But
Are you saying
yeah,
we're
we're in a good
breaking news
spot.
on the
Everyone's
podcast?
going to be here before the start of school.
Got it. Got it. So how are you treating like the incoming freshman class? Because obviously they had an opportunity to also quote unquote enter the transfer portal. Like what were you doing to keep all the players excited and motivated and not enter the transfer portal? Given that Brittany actually made her announcement pretty early on, right after the end of the season, and you didn't really lose any everyday players.
I think a lot of not losing people had a lot to do with the university and the overall culture here. So I wouldn't say I particularly did anything special, but Syracuse is a unique place. So when I was announced, I had 20 some coaches, staff members reach out from the university, send me a text. That has never happened before in any transition for me ever. And I'm like, wow, like that's interesting. And then I get to campus and I go through a 3 hour orientation and same thing, like people coming up to me, super nice, like introducing themselves, excited you're here. Like it was authentic. So I would tell you the university is heavily involved with athletics and supportive of it and just genuine. So that was really interesting coming out of Minnesota Nice for me.
So it was one of the coaches, legendary basketball coach Jim Boeheim. Did he like welcome you to Syracuse?
He did not, but when I came to interview, we were walking through the athletic facility, and I literally had just watched the week before an ESPN docuseries on the Big East and the start of ESPN and how those two things collided to like really make basketball and college basketball what it is today, really, with television and all the rest. And so I'm going through and they take me into basketball and they're running practice and Jim Boeheim's sitting on a chair watching practice. And I'm like,
Wow.
that's the coolest, like, because he is a legend. Not only basketball, but just coaching in general. And so it was super cool to see him. I didn't go bug him, but he has an office on campus, so I'm sure I'll run into him. I'll try
Well,
not to
maybe
be too struck and
got to get your first win under your belt first, and then you can say now you're part of the fraternity.
perfect.
All right, we're going to move more into the recruiting side of things. How is your recruiting philosophy or standards going to change in the AHA versus the WCHA? Now that you're at Syracuse and maybe you can't get the players that want to compete against Wisconsin and Ohio State, what is it that you're going to be looking for, and where do you draw the line now, given the different level of players that you might be able to recruit?
Honestly, I don't think it changes. Here's why. St. Cloud, we built the same way and it'll be the same philosophy here. We're looking for solid B kids. Like, I'm well aware we're not going to be grabbing national team players and 3-time U18 players out of the chute. It doesn't work that way. What you have to do, and geez, we did this at North Dakota too. You have to find solid B kids with a work ethic and an ability to work hard on a daily basis over a long period of time. That's how you build your program. And once you show that you can develop players, that you're moving players on to the next levels and they're getting better and the team is experiencing success, then it starts to roll, starts to feed itself a little bit. So I don't see that's different. What will be different is what our backyard is. So obviously St. Cloud, our backyard was the Midwest and Minnesota, Wisconsin, and pushing into Western Canada and really global for us with having players from Russia, Germany, Finland. It'll be a little bit different here, whereas Southern Ontario's our backyard and that there are prep schools that have moved on a lot of players to Syracuse as well. So what's considered our background or what's traditionally been their recruiting pools are a little different for me. So working hard to get up to speed with some of those relationships, but I still maintain the European connections. I still maintain the Midwest connections and also that in Western Canada. So it will be a little bit different, more from what our backyard is considered to be than what we're looking for.
100%. Got the ability to literally to recruit from anywhere in the world, but now you're going to probably get a lot more familiar with the GTA and the Ottawa Valley to find more players, because when you look at the roster, large number of Canadians from those necks of the woods.
It's real close. It's an hour, 2 hours. So, and the education is part is significantly different being at a school that's in a Power Five conference and competing in the ACC with big time football and basketball. That dynamic is different for me for sure. So it'll be interesting.
Got it. Got it. So where are things at for 2028 recruiting? Because given that you only were named basically a month after the June 15th date, how does that impact your recruiting for 2028? And tell us where you're at with your recruiting process. I believe I've only seen one commit so far for Syracuse for 2028.
So the biggest thing, and what I've told most people in the transition here is, and again, this is not new for me. I went through this before. You have to evaluate your roster first. So you can't haphazardly just go out and start offering kids and bring kids in. We have to be very targeted about what our player looks like. What is a Syracuse player? And honestly, who's willing in the transition to do the work? And what are we doing with the fifth year and the players? Do we keep with them in house? Are we going to be players in the transfer portal? Like, there's a lot that needs to be figured out. So I've told most people in the transition, it'll take me probably till November to really be able to look at that class and say, okay, this is what we're going to bring in. We're going to bring in 3D and we're going to bring in 4 forwards and a goalie. So I think most people understand what that looks like. And I don't think I'm alone. Conversation to start with. That fifth year is going to be a huge bottleneck of players. And if they give it to the seniors, it's going to make it even worse. So it used to be 10 years ago, I could write up my lineup for the next 5 years and there'd be zero fluctuation. I don't, even at St. Cloud, I couldn't write up a lineup for the following year because of the transfer portal and what that might look like and the unknowns of that. So it's a different animal. It's more pro than it is college athletics, at least when I started.
Got it. So in terms of if you're a 2028 and you haven't found a spot yet, still an opportunity to figure out if there might be an opportunity at Syracuse sometime in November after you start doing your projections on where things might land and what your needs will be. Is that correct?
Honestly, it's like COVID point two with the fifth year right now. So there's a lot of players who are open to taking a gap year and pushing back. And I don't think that's the worst thing, but there is going to be a big bottleneck of players for the next couple of years till this sorts itself out. And your heart goes out for that age bracket because it stinks. There are a lot of players that in a normal cycle year would probably already know where they're going to school and could relax and just focus on hockey. And I know the anxiety that comes with not having that sorted out and it dragging on into January and February. And I really think that we're probably not alone with this dynamic, and that there are a lot of schools who are being very patient with this till we have all the information, but the players are the ones that are suffering through the unknown, waiting to see what's going to happen.
Perfect. All right. And so beyond an incredible work ethic and not knowing exactly which positions that you're looking for, what are the other attributes that you're going to look for so that players and parents can get a feel for here's what it's going to be like to go to Syracuse, and these are the type of players that you're recruiting?
So I think this is the hardest part as a prospect because they start seeing people go off the board, and the top 1% is the top 1%. Like that goes off pretty fast. I think everyone's pretty aware of that. But that next grouping of players, player number 30 through 130, there's not a lot of difference. And so that's where it's like, okay, why this person over me? And I can't speak for everybody. I can only speak for myself because I realize that my view on some of this is different. But how do you fit into style of play? What is it that you provide that maybe somebody else does? Unfortunately, players all want to be centers and put up points because they think that's the clearest path to getting to the next level. And for me, it's not. And the same for like D, every position. Like D think they've got to rush the puck every time they touch it and put up a bunch of points or no one's going to look at them. And every year we get enamored with some of those players in the summer. And then when it comes to playoff time for us, we're like, oh, for the love of goodness, can I please just have someone who can match up against the other team's top players, make simple plays, get pucks deep, get pucks to the next level, and not beat themselves, because that's what wins in playoff hockey. And so there are a lot of ways to get to, are you super good on the wall? Defensively, are you great? How gritty are you? Are you great F1 on the forecheck? I can't have 12 players who cheat the offense and put up some points and don't always have the best 200-foot compete level. That's not how it works. So you have to have some variation, and you have to be able to slot kids into some situations. So that's what it looks like from me. And so I think people don't always fully understand that.
Perfect. All right, last two questions. I'm actually going to go a little bit back in part of the conversation because I forgot to ask you this earlier. So with you coaching Czechia and this year Worlds being in November, that means you're going to be gone quite a bit, especially when they have like some of the pre-world events going on. So what are you going to be doing in October and November while you're away? Is it your coaching staff going to take over, or are you going to have to miss some events on one side or the other?
No, so I committed to the Czech position first. And so I was committed to that. And I was very transparent with Syracuse that it was important to me and I needed to honor that. And so they were good about that. Unfortunately, obviously, when you come in, you don't have control of the schedule. So like we have 2 bye weeks and 2 weeks off of games. Well, I would schedule that during the Euro tour moving forward. So I wouldn't be missing stuff, but with no control of that, this fall is going to be really interesting. So staff will take over that. We're also fortunate with the university and having such a great business sports management degree and analytics degree that there are a lot of people interested in and supportive of the program that help with that, so that I do feel comfortable everything's going to be taken care of when I do have to leave for national team events.
Got it. All right.
So it's a lot, though. I'm honest about that. It's a lot.
It is what it is, right? You just got to play the cards that you're dealt. All right, last question. So you talked about all the challenges from recruiting with the new rules and with what's going on with players in a second COVID. What advice do you have for players and parents who are either 2028s or 29s or maybe even 2027s that may get decommitted? What advice do you have just about the whole recruiting process and navigating what's going on?
I think that's the toughest part because they always want to. I remember a long time ago, we were like, send an email. Make sure that you're communicating. It's honestly gotten to a point now where, like, my first day here, I'm going through 200 plus emails. And so that's just, now you get inundated. Like, it used to be rare that someone would do that. My advice is it's our job to find you. So your focus needs to be being on the best version that yourself you can be, about continuing to develop your skills, getting bigger, stronger, faster, being a good teammate, the intangibles, taking care of your schoolwork. And if that means taking an extra year, then that's something you're going to have to take into consideration and potentially do and be open to that. It's starting to mirror boys junior hockey a little bit. And it wasn't necessarily intentional, but that's where we are. And that started with COVID. And there's nothing the matter with being a year older and more mature. I've always thought that was terrific. I honestly hated when I first got into college coaching. Like, you would just get someone to understand the compete level, understand what it takes, get them physically strong and mentally to understand what the game looks like and how it should be played. And they'd be 22 and done. So I don't mind that it's pushing the older, and especially with the PWHL and the opportunities to play beyond. It's better to be ready and be able to step in and do some things and compete than come in here and be overwhelmed.
100%. My daughter says that taking a PG year was one of the best decisions she ever made. Definitely was way better prepared for her first season.
Ray, I've yet to have a player come in and say they were too prepared and too ready to play college hockey.
Exactly. Even Caroline Harvey, I think she ended up, because of the Olympics, taking 2 years between high school and starting her first year at Wisconsin. So, Brian, I just want to thank you so much again for joining me on. It's always just a real treat to have you on with sharing your insight and your experience. And of course, want to wish you best of luck this year with Syracuse and with Czechia, except for when to play a certain other international team. And I really wish you the best, and we'll be following you throughout the season.
That sounds great, Ray. I appreciate you reaching out. It's good to connect again.
I really want to thank Brian for coming back on the podcast. He gave us a candid look at what he learned in Vancouver, what he is building at Syracuse, and the kind of player he recruits. If you want to learn more about the Syracuse women's hockey program, you can connect with Brian on the Syracuse website or via his Champs app profile. Links to both are in the show notes.